Dr. Claude Anderson, I like to call him our fearless leader, the man with a plan. He's the only national leader, heads a think tank that is for blacks, by blacks, and this is what he does. So you can get a chance to speak to Dr. Thornton, the PTA president, about the pipeline to from schools to prison complex. Dr. Anderson, is there such a pipeline, do you think, from your research? Have you found out that such a pipeline exists?
What pipeline is that, Carl? First of all, let me say good evening to you.
Good evening to you as well. The pipeline from schools to prison, there's calculated. They calculate how many students are going to flunk out of school, and therefore they start building these prison complexes for them.
Well, that's a very easy one, Carl. You don't necessarily have to have a pipeline to figure that out. You live in a society in which there's only three things that an individual can do to be self-sustaining and competitive in society. That's at three different levels. 1, 2, 3. The highest level is number 1. At the top, you either have a job with skills to properly equip you to be sustainable there. 2, you have a business up there. If you can't have a business and don't have a job, you must go down to level 2. Level 2 means you must go on some form of welfare or public assistance. And if a conservative group comes by and kicks you off or closes out all the programs, then you have no alternative to go down to level 3. Level 3 means you must steal. So every individual in our society, and especially blacks, must do one of three things: either sophistication, a combination, or elaboration of either working, go on welfare, or you steal. And the black folk right now live in a society where they have no businesses. They have less than 1/2 of 1% of the business in the United States. They have less than 1/2% of the wealth. They have no industries of any consequence. And when they're at the second level, all the welfare and public assistance programs cut out, then yes, you're going to go to jail. You're going to be criminalized. That's what a permanent underclass is. And that was put in effect way back in the 1968-69 by President Nixon, called benign neglect, which means cut out all these programs, shift the focus off of black folk, shift it to other groups, minority women and immigrants, and pretend that black folk don't exist. Benign neglect means make black folk become invisible in our society and use very broad, ambiguous terms like minorities, poor folk, people of color, multicultural, and diversity. And so, yes, there's a pipeline, but it's been set in place for years. And when you're debating issues, not worth debating. If you cannot build businesses and have a self-independent economy and a self-independent community where you can control the elements in your community, you're going to go to prison. You're going to be a permanent underclass of beggars and criminals.
Well, Doc, you said a few years back, well, you've been saying this for years, that 2013, that we would be a permanent underclass. Have we reached that stage yet?
Yes, you are now the official permanent underclass in America now. You're through. You got a very small window of opportunities, and I hate to say this to black folk, because I don't want to depress them, because there's a small window. If they can organize and do the kind of things we should be doing collectively as a team and as a group, we can still maybe get out of it. But it's getting very bad. And as you saw in Powernomics in Chapter 3, I talked about that also started in 2013, that in this century, that the issue won't be what Du Bois was talking about back in the 1920s about it being the color line. It's going to be the boundary lines where people are going to be fighting for territory, for boundaries. That's the issue in Syria. That's the issue in Russia with Ukraine. That's the issue in Palestinians and the Arabs and Israel. They're fighting for territory. Everybody's fighting for territory but black folk. Black folk are not giving up all their territory. They're integrating. They're integrating, and all these major metropolitan cities are going to be gentrified, where whites can come back and young people can come back and take over all the major cities where black folk used to be the dominant population. They're going to give up their territory. They're going to give up all their rights and all the assets in those areas. And so it's very hard to explain things to black folk. Most don't listen, and the ones who do listen, they don't care.
But that gentrification is happening, as you mentioned, all over the country in all our urban centers. And is it being done voluntarily? Are we complicit in it, or is it by design?
It's a combination of both, but by design. Combination of both by design. As a matter of fact, Bloomberg began to bring up the idea of regentrifying the cities and gave it back to Obama way back about 5 or 6 years ago, and said, let's take all these major urban areas that are so depressed and economically downgraded, and rather than revitalize them. And what we'll do, we just simply bring in immigrants in this country and put them on a high-speed path to give them green cards to come in this country in massive numbers in an unending influx, and bring them right into these major urban areas, help them start businesses and industries, and then as they begin to grow and build an economy, maybe they'll be interested in giving black people some jobs.
You mentioned that before. You mentioned that before, and you said that Baltimore was one of the cities that was actually doing that.
Well, yeah, no, that's not the only one that's doing it. They're doing it all over the country, Carl. Started out, New York has been working on it. Washington, D.C. used to be known as Chocolate City. When I came here with President Carter back in 1976, at that point in time, Washington, D.C. was known as Chocolate City. About 78% of the population was black. It's down into the mid-40s now. You got Detroit, Michigan. That's undergoing. The governor just came out 3 weeks ago and says, let's now revitalize the city of Detroit because we're going to gentrify it. And see, there's about 5 things they do to take over these cities, and to take over the wealth and the territory. They take it over, not necessarily by force. They take it over because black folk give it to them. We're the only person trying to integrate. You don't see you haven't seen an American Indians marching on Washington D.C. to integrate. You haven't seen any Koreans or Chinese or Arabs or Hispanics marching to Washington to integrate. The only people who want to integrate is black folk. You're giving up all your rights. In Detroit, Michigan, the same thing. And so that's why the governor came out. So let's bring in all these immigrants into Detroit, Michigan, which used to be primarily a 90% black city. And now blacks are going to be a permanent underclass, get buried alive underneath them. And before they
hang on, Doc, because we got to take a break. I'll let you finish.